On today's American Football Stories episode, we welcome the coach that never punts, Kevin Kelley, out of the Pulaski Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas. Look forward to sharing that interview with you in a few moments. But first, American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlights, similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tell a straight video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game today with Coach Paint.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They're gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast, brought to you by Coach Paint. Today is October 13th. I'm Nick Knudsen, my co-host Robert Parker III. Rob, big guest today, Coach Kelley out of the Pulaski Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas. What did you learn from researching his background and what he's about with his analytics?
Huge guest, Nick. But one thing that I learned about, Coach Kelley and his analytics approach is that, he's pretty much a transcender. He's very innovative when it comes to, taking an analytics approach and, putting it towards the football. Just like I said, we see it in baseball with the Moneyball, Tampa Bay Rays, and we see it in the basketball with Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets. But Kevin Kelley is definitely one of the few coaches who's using that analytics approach to, transcending and being the football coaching program in the world, Nick.
Yeah, we know Coach Kelley. He gets a lot of attention for not punting. He gets a lot of attention for the onside kicks, but the analytics really transcend every level of their program. He talked a little bit in our interview about not using whistles during practice. They have silent practices to work on communication with hand signals and everything. Very interesting interview. He walks us through, gives a lot of thoughts. He was very generous with his time, and we appreciate it, Coach Kelley. Here's Coach Kelley's interview coming right up. The American Football Stories podcast would like to welcome our guest, Kevin Kelley, the head coach at Pulaski Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas. His analytics-driven approach has gained national attention over the years as his teams continue to rack up state titles. I believe they're up to 8 now. Coach Kelley is simply known as the coach who never punts. But, Coach, this philosophy, it's built on a solid foundation. Can you walk our listeners through, who might not be as familiar with your approach, through the basics of why your teams never punt, onside kick on a regular basis, and go for 2?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Nick, you'll have to shut me up because I just talk. I'll just roll on, and you'll be like, okay, when it gets too much, just say, hey, we need to move on.
That's pretty good for a podcast, though, right?
Well, maybe. I don't know. It depends. Yeah. Not many people shut me up, but I get to do a lot of podcasts, so I guess it works out. The reality is, I had been coaching football and as an assistant coach, and when I got hired in 2003 here as the head coach, everybody thinks they want a jobs and a responsibility till you get it sometimes. And you start looking like, what all does this entail? And it really hit me when I went and sat down for the first time in the chair of the head coach. I literally sat in the chair at the desk and I'm like, wait a minute, what makes me think I'm going to be any better than the last guy? Besides, I think I have a little more football knowledge and maybe some leadership, but in reality, what's this going to be about? So I started asking a lot of questions about the program. Why aren't we doing this kind of weightlifting and eating and this and that? And then I got to the on the field and I wanted to do the same thing. Why are we running this kind of offense, this kind of defense? Why are we warming up this way at this time? And I started asking all those questions. And then I really got lucky and just started asking, okay, every single thing, like, okay, why are we kicking off the way we do? Why are we punting on 4th down? Why are we? And I asked those questions, and I started researching, just looking for answers. And I came across, and people asked me, who it was. I don't know. I've got notes on it, but I didn't. It was a weird little documentary type thing that some guy a Harvard professor had videoed himself, and no, it wasn't all the big time guys that you've seen that have been interviewed from Cal Berkeley or anything like that. He was just a guy that had studied football, and he was in his classroom in Harvard on the old he had a whiteboard, and he had analyzed, he said, 3 years worth of games. And he had come to the conclusion and was trying to prove that you should never punt. Now, this is pre-Moneyball, pre the word analytics in sports, pre this. I started looking at that and really going, okay, this makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm a pretty aggressive play caller anyway. I was the offensive coordinator, and I was a pretty aggressive play caller anyway. So I started really looking at that fourth down and just mathematically going, okay, if we complete 60% of our passes, which we do up in my career as OC, this common sense thing was, well, if it's third down and 10, say, and you don't complete a pass, you got a little bit better chance of completing it on fourth down, because if you're 60%, that math kind of makes sense. That's how I got started on it. And then as you do something, you get better at it and you learn from it. And then I really started learning from it, because then I learned, wait a minute, dummy, don't go on 3rd and 10, 2 10-yard passes and see if you can complete one.
Right.
On third down, do what'll work against the defense. Most of them are trying to stop you from getting to the stick. So don't be afraid to throw it underneath and make them open field tackle you, or don't be afraid to run it if they put 5 in the box and guard the pass and get into a first down or a manageable fourth down, so to speak. So live and learn along the way, to the point where I saw that benefited us so much that I really then, when Moneyball came out, I started looking at the game differently. And then when the analytics world opened up to football, I really started, I just went and said, what are the 5 things that benefit or that tell who's going to win the game the most in the game of football? And let's get your team organized as much as you can around those things. And so I've floundered through the years and came up with different things and tossed out some that don't apply to us as much, and then looked at ourselves, my own film for 10 years, and seen what affected the game more than anything. And now our entire team, our whole philosophy is based on the things that affect whether we win or lose a game. We focus on those, working on those in practice, fixing those, and orchestrating our whole philosophy around those analytics more than we do anything else. And then you look up years later and you've gone from a school that had never been to the finals, to one, since I've been the head coach for 16 years, have been to 11 finals, won 8 state championships, and been to the semifinals 14 times. So, and I think so much of it, I think I'm a good coach and a good leader and all that stuff, but I'm not that much better than the normal guy. But when you start basing your team on what wins or loses game on hundreds of thousands of examples of instances,
right,
there's a lot of data. I think it can change the way that I think it changes your success dramatically.
Now, Coach, I'm gonna ask you something real quick. I know Robert's got a couple questions here, but just for the listeners who are like, so wait, so you even go for the typical example you tend to walk through is going for fourth down on your 5-yard line, like 4th and 5 from your 5-yard line. I've seen you talk about where each yard line has an assigned value of scoring. So like it's 92% chance the opponent scores if they take over on your 5-yard line. But you talk about the reason you go for that fourth down is because if you punt, you're going to be punted in a tight formation anyway, and they're taking over at the 33, and they got a 77% chance of scoring anyway. So you're playing the odds. Hey, I could beat this 15% chance. It's a 15% difference if I punt or don't punt. So why not go for it? That's really the philosophy, right?
Yeah, there's a ton of information out there now more than ever about expected point value on different yard lines, percentage of chance you've got to score from different points on the field. And my numbers are all based off college, because high school doesn't have a good database for that. But in reality, at the time when I first started deciding that was the numbers. And it was, if the other team gets the ball inside your 10-yard line, they acquire it for whatever reason, they score 92% of the time. So, and then if you look at the net punt in college, from inside your own 5-yard line, let's say, it's shorter than most nets because you are afraid somebody's going to block it. You bring everybody in. Now you can't cover as well, and your net punt isn't nearly as much. Your punter's got to do a 2-step kick instead of a 3-step kick. He doesn't get as much into it. All those things factor in. And the net punt is they end up with the ball inside your 40. And so, like you said, the percentage change is 15%. And if you're a team that, is a 50%. We're a 50% of all distances conversion to fourth down, but inside 4th and 7, we're even higher. We're like 62%. So if you factor all that in, then you're going to, then the numbers offset. You should go for it down there in that situation anyway. Now, here's what's changed over the years from even that, what you've heard, and that is the fact that as soon as I realized I was going to be punting far less, I was able to eliminate that amount of time from my practice time. Mm-hmm. Well, if I can take 20 minutes out a day that everybody works on punt, and I can do something specific to make us better analytically, like our defense, over half of our 20-yard plays that we give up, which is a major factor in determining who wins or loses the game, come when the way our defense is, when you get outside our defensive end or our contained person, whoever it's assigned. It might be an outside blitz or whatever. So we'll work 10 minutes on that section. I'll work 10 minutes if I want to do hook and laterals that game. I'll work 10 minutes on that. We'll work 10 minutes on another couple of analytics I've got. So that's time I didn't have to spend on punting. So the more I realized that I was getting more benefit out of that time, that's not measurable in the analytics world. They're not going to measure what 20 minutes does for you extra in practice. Mm-hmm. As soon as I realized that, I started punting even when I should have punted, because I'm like, well, hell, we didn't practice it anyway. So, and then I started changing the way I called things on third down, and that benefited me even more. So it kind of snowballed into the fact that we rarely punt now. I think we've had 8 in the last 16 years, maybe 15 or 16 years, and 8 punts. And so, that's kind of where we are now, and that's how it got there.
It's every fan's dream. Rob, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Once again, Coach Kelley, this is Robert Parker. One of the questions that I had for you is that in regards to the analytics-driven approach, did you face any internal or external pushback, early on in your coaching career when you kind of made that transition to not punting and the onside kicks?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, people think you're crazy. And I've been, one of my assistant coaches, you go years of not knowing, you think you've got a perception of yourself and you think other people have a perception of you. And one guy sums me up as this. One of my assistants has been with me for 9 years now. He said, you're one of the very few people in the world that I see that don't mind conflict. And I think he's being nice about it, because I think sometimes I embrace conflict. But I didn't realize that about myself. But what that does is made it easier at the first when I was making the transition, when, people are in the stands booing when you go for it and don't make it, and you're trying to talk to your players and induce their psychology to accept that and maybe even embrace that. So yeah, at first people are booing when we didn't make it. And I noticed in 2007, we were doing a game and I decided it was the last time when we were regularly ever going to punt, to be honest with you, because it was 4th down. We were up 5. There was like 3 minutes left in the game. I asked my defensive coordinator, do you really feel like you're going to be able to hold them if we punt right here? So we trot out the punt team. They punt, we punt, and the crowd stood up and gave us a standing ovation. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, and so, but what it did to me, it showed me really, what kind of person you have to be to go against the norm. Because immediately when that happened, I'm like, screw all these people. I'm doing what I want to do from now on and not worried about what they think. The end game of that story is we punted and they scored 3 plays later and beat us. So, I mean, it reinforced the fact that, you didn't have to punt right there, and you went against your own conviction. So that all said, yeah, I put up with it for years, and even now still do. I mean, people get you build a monster, so to speak, and that sounds arrogant, but I mean, go win 5 state titles in 6 years when the school had never even been there before. Now we've won 8 in the last 16 years. We're winning 50% of all state titles, when before I started they had won 0 and not ever been there. And so, but you build a monster where people expect it, to the point where last year we won the state title as well. And after taking a 1-year hiatus from it, we lost in the finals, but we lost to a team and my wife gets told up in the stands, and she's crying after the game one time. She gets told, maybe it's time for us to get a normal football coach that runs the ball and plays defense. I mean, after one loss. So I still get it even now if we lose a game. And I guess that's the human nature of people. So, yeah, there's always going to be resistance if you do anything against the norm. And in sports where people are extremely passionate, I think it's going to be even more so. I mean, it's one thing if you're a company or if you run an organization, or if you're an oil company or in the financial world, to do something different than the norm. But no, nobody's going to be yelling at you from the stands on, when you're making that decision. And, people just have to be prepared. If you're going to do something different, you better, A, have a good reason to base it on when it goes wrong, so you've got something to fall back on. And B, you better be able to take the bull crap that comes with it, because there is a lot of bull crap that comes with it.
I don't think normal coaches go to 11 state championship games in 16 years, so that's not overly normal either. But, Coach, we wanted to talk about the punting and the onside kick stuff just to get that out of the way, because those are the flashy headline grabbers. But I've read where analytics plays a significant role in a number of aspects of your program. Example, the number of deep shots your offense takes down the field in the passing game. So clearly it plays a role in other parts. How do you use analytics to drive strategy on, say, the defensive side of the ball? Maybe some areas we don't talk about as much in other.
Well, it's really kind of on both. And here's an example of that kind of goes to both sides of the ball. The number one thing a couple of years ago, and I didn't check last year, the number one thing 2 years ago in college football determined if you won games or not was plays over 20 yards. Mm-hmm. Number two was turnovers. If you ask everybody what matters the most, they'd say turnovers. Turnovers, you win 80% of the game if you win the turnover battle. You win 81% of the games if you have more plays over 20 yards. So take the names off the stat sheet and go. And if you want to know who won the game, look at who had the most plays over 20 yards. So I designed our offense to go that route, and that means we throw more intermediate, not deep shot throws, as people call them, fade routes or go routes or whatever, because those are lower percentage pass plays. Mm-hmm. But we throw more 15 to 20-yard routes than anybody in the game. And because I found that that's a high percentage play that gets you to that 20-yard play, because it's usually underneath the safeties, but behind the linebackers. You start throwing the ball 5 yards like a lot of teams do, and look at air yards in the analytics world. It's hard because you're throwing it right where the linebackers are horizontally spaced across the field. You've got to hit the spots in between them. Play action and throw it over their head, but underneath the safeties, and you've got a bigger chance, and it's a 20-yard play. The other thing we do is I'm amazed that more coaches, even in the NFL, don't think about this, but it's the stationary routes, the stops, the curls, the whatever. There's more yards after catch, which in a sense can turn into 20-yard plays on dig routes, slant routes, curl and go, stop and go, post routes, quick post, quick flags, that kind of stuff. There's way more run after catch, which go to 20 yards. So now it's harder to hit those routes because they're moving, and wherever everybody thinks it or not, there's quarterbacks that throw the ball on target and allow catch after run. But there's quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and I'll name Cam Newton as one that's very famous that everybody thinks a good quarterback. Cam, the difference is, and you guys can see me, your viewers can't, is if I throw a dig route, a 10-yard in, let's say, and if I throw it, a guy's running straight across the field. If I hit him in stride, he's A, moving target for the defense to tackle, and B, he doesn't have to slow down or turn around to catch the ball and stop his momentum. He can immediately look upfield. He's in open field, and he will get run after catch yards, okay? The second hardest thing to do in football, in my opinion, is open field tackle. So if you hit him with a good pass, he immediately is in space, making the defense do the second hardest thing in football. Now, the same pass, if Cam Newton throws it behind the player, so picture the player stopping, slightly having to slow down, turn all the way around to catch the ball, and now he's a sitting target going about a third speed, you're way easier to tackle, 20-yard play averted. You're not getting those extra yards after catch. So we've designed our offense to hit those motion routes, do less stationary routes. I brought all that up because most coaches don't want to do that. They want a higher percentage throw, and a stationary route where a guy's running a 5-yard stop or a 10-yard curl is a higher percentage completion throw. So but if you work enough, you can get a quarterback to do those things. I think the problem with it is you think, well, a good quarterback can do it. No, it fights all human nature. And I think it probably goes back to when we were cavemen and we had to throw a rock and hit a deer or a rabbit to eat, we didn't try to throw it at the thing when he was running. We tried to throw it when he was stationary. And but our mind wants to throw it where a person is right there, not lead them by a certain amount.
Right.
Then you have to judge the speed of the person. I mean, Edelman might be running one speed across the field and Gronk might be running another. So your brain has to be able to put all that together to hit them in stride. Some quarterbacks are good, some quarterbacks are not. I make my quarterbacks be good at it because it helps us with the 20-yard plays and win games. I know that. And there's reasons behind why the 20-yard play too. It's not just a random number. On the defensive side of the ball, keep it in the same context. I think it was the third biggest analytics maybe that determined who won or lost a game was quarterback sacks. We've heard of sacks being drive killers. 77% of all teams year before last in college football, if you strictly looked and see who had more quarterback sacks in a game, they won 77% of the time. So throw everything else out, and that was the number. So we engineered our defense to do the same thing. If they're in a passing situation, we're going to concoct blitzes and schemes and either make the quarterback throw it sooner so they can't get to the first down, or where they're more likely to throw stationary routes because they know they're going to be under duress and need to make it as easy as possible in the play calling. But we're going to blitz more people than you've got to block most of the time. So if you've got 4 receivers, we'll blitz 7. You can only have 6 to block if you keep the back in. And if you've got 5 receivers, we'll bring 6 guys, so you've got less to block. We're going to make your quarterback throw it really fast. And usually it's a hot stationary route or a slant, which we're going to jump all over, which we condition our guys to do. So that wins 77% of the game. So why would you not build your defense around doing that? Well, people are like, well, we're going to build a good front 4 so we can still play coverage and sack the guy. Well, we can all say that all we want to, but in a whole year where they run 1,000 plays, the best sackers in the NFL are going to get 20 sacks. You've got to bring pressure to be able to consistently get sacks game in, game out. And then we built our defense around that analytic, which is, like the third or fourth, I think it's third to actually determine who wins games or not. So we do that on all levels of our team on both sides of the ball as well as we can. And then we strategize and X's and O's to get our teams to be able to do that. People that don't know us will say, well, I bet y'all just got a really talented team. Well, I don't want to counter that by hurting our kids, but I think we've got normal kids that we put in good systems and strategize up where it makes them look really good. I mean, I've had every quarterback since 2003 for me has thrown for at least 4,000 yards and in a season. So in 17 seasons now, all 17 have thrown for 4,000 yards.
Wow.
And 12 of them have thrown for 5,000 yards in the season. Okay. Now, wow. I say all that to say all of them are not true 5,000 yard and 4,000 yard quarterbacks, but you can X's and O's people into thing if you're smart enough, and it's going opposite of of the normal thinking of, well, we're looking for matchups. I don't want a matchup. My kids aren't going to outmatch you very often. We're going down to play Tyler, Texas this Friday. We've got 3 kids out of 22 starters, 3 kids over 200 pounds. 3. That's my. Wow. Think about your offensive line, your defensive line. We have 0 on the defensive line, 2 on the offensive line, and our middle linebacker is, but it's just because he's a little too chunky, But we got 3 kids, so we had to learn how to strategize. It's like survival of the fittest. We had to learn how to play the game differently to be able to win games. And next thing I know, we're winning at a really high level, I think, because of the X's and O's, the strategy, and the analytics.
So there's slants, the dig routes, everything the moving type routes. That's great in the open field. Does that change when you're in the red zone though? Do you go a little more traditional, a little more curls or anything in the red zone where you don't need the extra yardage?
No, most people, and you'll find a few, but probably over 70% of the defenses go to man-to-man anyway.
Yeah.
And curl routes and stationary routes are not good against man because they're open for a split second, until you get stopped and the guy catches up with you or comes down on you. The other routes, once you get open, they're open continuously for that amount of time until you get to a linebacker that can help or a safety that can help that's not in coverage. So the window is longer for motion routes, even in that scenario. So we just run those all over the field, and I'd say, I mean, it's paid off well for us.
So I read too, going into other aspects of your program here that have been affected by analytics. I've read where your practices feature limited contact, and another thing I heard you talk about too that I thought was interesting was I heard you talk about factoring emotions into stats when you were on the panel at the Sloan Analytics Conference.
Yeah.
And I've seen where you guys also use silent practices to practice. Hey, we're not going to be able to hear each other on Friday. So what are some other unique approaches your team takes both physically and mentally during the season in practice and during the off season?
That's one of the things is as you mentioned is contact. We never are in full pads, even in spring ball. Some people like to get out and do their Oklahoma drills, and they like to, make the kids tougher and all that kind of stuff. And, I want them to be mentally committed and mentally tough. And God knows that the people around here would say I'm too much in that dimension with, and some people call it dementia, but dimension with that, because I really run more of at times it's a military style discipline. But I don't think that beating them up even in the spring is going to be a good thing. I don't think that makes it tougher. I don't think they remember that in August and think now I'm physically tougher. I just don't believe that. I think you've got to psychologically conform them to that way. I mean, when we're getting military guys ready, the greatest military guys in the world are probably our SEAL teams. I don't think we go beat the freak out of each one of them. Now we run them and put them in adverse situations mentally where they've got to keep going. We'll do that. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to get a guy injured during the week where he can't practice on a Friday. And even though people think of the NFL as a rough and tough place, they're not either. They've got 17 practices. There's 16 practices they can have contact during a 17-week season. And even then, they don't do it. I've been to a lot of NFL practices. There's not a lot of that going on. Would you rather have your guys beat up on each other physically, and maybe they're getting the physicality out of it, but once every 4 weeks, some guy can't practice all week, or worse, he can't even play on Friday night because you hurt him in practice? Or would you rather have all your guys there, your starters, that you've put all your time and effort into running your systems on offense and defense, and they've got the timing down, the steps down, and all that kind of stuff? And so we just quit doing that. We same thing. I try to think of scenarios that'll help us out in practice. We don't sprint anymore. We don't run any sprints after practice. And I had a coach from Northwestern that was here, and he was watching our practice. I didn't know what he was doing. I mean, I knew he was trying to evaluate some players. He ended up not offering any of them, but he ended up calling me back and go, I just charted your practice that you have for an hour and 55 minutes. And I say an hour and 55 because I think it's psychological to tell your kids an hour 55 instead of 2 hours. Mm-hmm. They go, oh, hour and 55. We're just practicing for an hour. You go 2 hours, like, oh my gosh, 2 hours of football. It's a big number, but we did that. And he goes, you ran 240 plays during your practice.
Jeez.
And
wow.
So I started thinking, well, in a game, our guys are going to be out there from, the most plays I think we've ever run on one side of the ball is 120. So if we're running 240, they're conditioned. What are we doing making them run at the end? They don't like it. I mean, how many times do they just run in a straight line anyway? I don't know that that's the kind of conditioning you want to get. So I bumped that out, and instead of that 10 or 15 minutes, we ran more plays. Well, the more I did that, you'll see, if you went to our practice, you would see one 10-minute individual period, and you'd see a 10-minute kickoff period. You wouldn't see any punt, no punt return, no kickoff return, no PAT, all 11 on 11 outside that. Some situational, some goal line, some third down, some different situations, some analytics that I won't mention here necessarily, but you'll see 11 on 11 because that's how the game's played. And you'll see us holding guys out, not taking them to the ground. But during that 11 on 11 times, you'll see us run 240 plays. So we're conditioned. We've ran those plays more times. I mean, practice, if a lot of reps makes you better, we're getting all that in. We're coaching like a game. My coaches have to coach on the run, during the play, after the play, between the next play, because that's the way you have to coach in the game. Some guys don't. They send their guys out there and they think they're not going to coach them till the halftime, or sometimes even till the game's over with, or sometimes between series. We coach out during plays. And we do silent practice sometimes for a couple of reasons. One is because, like you said, sometimes you can't hear each other out there. Two, it's because I don't want the guys distracted at all on the side telling each other a joke or about Betty Sue, what she was wearing today. I want them focused on the game. If they can't talk, they're more focused on what's going on the field. And then another thing you'll see is we never, ever, 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 we don't even have a whistle. Our coaches don't have a whistle. And what that does is, I think during when we're running plays during practice, one of our coaches will yell out "good" really loud. Okay, good has two things that it serves. One, there's probably some guys that did a good job on that play, so there's the psychology of the positive word "good." Two, they have to listen to our voices and train themselves during the game and during practice to listen to our voices. So when we coach them, they hear us because they're used to listening for us to stop the play. Thirdly, late hits we've had in the last probably 15 years too, because we are never immune to hearing a whistle, never immune to it. We hear a whistle. They only hear them on Friday nights only. It's like, I'm running, whistle. What just happened? They never hear those whistles. And we don't get late hits as a result of that. So we reduce the free yards, which I talk about all the time. So there's a lot of reasons. There's so many things different about the way we practice even than everybody else that you wouldn't, if you're somebody up in the stands, you probably wouldn't notice that we had a 10-minute individual period. And the rest of the time we were doing 11-on-11 stuff. And as a result of that, people walk away that are used to it around here and don't think we're any different. But if a coach comes in that's never seen this, they're like, that's unbelievable. That's what y'all do in practice. I don't know how y'all, some of them will walk away going, I don't know how y'all win anything. And the other ones will walk away going, wow, that's a revelation.
Well, let's talk about something that's going on right now. I mean, we've seen, obviously 2020 has just been a mess of a year, screwed up a lot of plans across the board, but particularly preseason, all types of workouts, all types of maybe hitting. People have been limited on their hitting because of, contact and everything, limiting contact. But I take it from your answer, it's probably a no on this, but do you think that the limited contact in this type of offseason has affected what we've seen going on, let's say in the SEC, where we're seeing traditional defensive powers like Alabama, LSU, and Florida just get torched right now?
No, I don't think that at all. I think a couple of things come from that. One, you've seen a higher number of injuries, I believe, in the NFL and college than usual. I think that's from the lack of conditioning. They haven't been with their coaches. I don't mean conditioning. I mean strength training. And they're not getting the strength training that builds the muscles that surrounds the joints, the knees and the shoulders that get hurt more. I mean, your joint's only as strong as the muscles that service that joint. That's where I think you're seeing the injuries. And I know you didn't ask about that, but I'm telling you how COVID's affected us.
Right.
And then I think in the NFL, what you're seeing as the points are higher is because look at the number of holding calls. It's been a vast difference. And then the people that know more than anything about points in the NFL are people in Las Vegas that set the line. So I've read studies that they've come out with or they've been talking about that that they attribute it to less holding calls. Holding are drive killers in the NFL. The number of holding calls they're calling in the NFL are way, 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 way down. Nobody knows why, but that's affecting the total points. In the SEC, I read a great quote on Twitter the other day that was talking about it. They're turning into the Big 12 defenses. And then I saw another one that said, if somebody scores 50 on Oklahoma State, everybody says, well, there's the Big 12 defense. They score 50 on Alabama. Ole Miss did the other night, and everybody's like, well, their offense is just really good. And the perception is that, but the offenses are changing. LSU gave up 50 because they've been playing grinded out football a lot over the years and reduced number of possessions. There's going to be a reduced number of points. And then you get a Mike Leach there that's throwing the ball all around. Then you get some dumb butt, I shouldn't say dumb butt, but you get some DC that just goes, we're going to line up and play them in man because our men are better than theirs are. And you get to halftime and you've given up 300 yards and you trot back out there and do the same thing. A guy like Mike Leach that's a good play caller is going to beat your butt if you do that. And so instead they get 600 something yards ran up on them and a lot of points and lose the game. And everybody's like, oh, COVID. No, not COVID. That would have happened whether it's COVID or not. If you line up and do the same things. It's really should have hurt offenses more. I know it's hurt my offense because they wouldn't let us go out and throw the ball and they wouldn't let us get our timing down. They wouldn't let us run plays until August. It should be helping defenses. My defense is the best it's been in 10 years. And I think talent-wise, it's not the best defense we've had in 10 years. I think that's helped us there. I think it's hurt our offenses. But what you're seeing for that in the SEC, or you're seeing more aggressive offenses, you're seeing less line up and run, because eventually if you want to beat Alabama, it's why the passing offense flourished as early as it did and is still going, is because if you play Alabama, they're always going to have the biggest players and the best players. You line up and run it, they line up and run it, they're going to beat you 99 times out of 100 just on talent. Mm-hmm. If you can X's and O's them, now you're giving yourself a little better chance. The better you are at that, and the better you are at being a play caller and making them do the hardest things in football, which are play pass defense and tackle an open field. And teams are now making them do that and reducing the cushion between an Alabama and a Mississippi State or an Arkansas or a whoever. And as long as people continue to innovate on offense and do those things, you're going to see the gap close, and you're going to see higher numbers, and you're going to see higher yards. And people are going to say, oh, the SEC isn't full of, monster robot defensive players. They were just the last conference to come around to that type of play.
Yeah, we've seen them evolve, and that's a good transition here to your question, Robert, your next set of questions.
Yeah, Coach. So I'm going to jump back in, and I want to stick with the X's and O's. So over the past 5 years, we've seen elements of the air raid and the spread option football increasingly make their way into the NFL. And just like you talked about earlier, we talked about Moneyball, and we talked about Daryl Morey approach with the Houston Rockets. Do you think we will see a full-out commitment to your brand of football at the college level or the NFL level, in the next few years?
I think it'll continue at the same rate that it is now, slowly but surely increasing in that avenue. I think the jury's out on the NFL. I think a lot of it will go on the Lamar Jackson experiment. And the reason I think is, in the NFL, think about it, every quarterback, and they're right and wrong in this. And you got to shut me up on this one too. The NFL right now on planet Earth, how many guys are there really on planet Earth that can lead a team to a Super Bowl win, all the way through the playoffs and to a Super Bowl win? Honestly, I say in a given year, there's between 7 and 9 guys that are even capable of it, okay? Because of what all is put on the quarterback in the NFL, the risk for injury, whatever. And there's probably 7 to 9 humans on the planet that can even do that at one moment, okay? So in the NFL, what do? They place a high emphasis on the quarterback, keeping him safe and not putting him in harm's way. Well, if you start looking around, and I think Baltimore's figured it out, how many of those real guys do you get that stay here year in, year out, that end up like an Aaron Rodgers, a Peyton Manning, a Drew Brees, where there's been 1,000 over them over the last 15 years that are quarterbacks, but there's only been about 5 that we go, oh, yeah, Peyton Manning. Oh, yeah, Drew Brees. Oh, yeah, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, that can take you every year. They have a chance if you've got that guy to go to a Super Bowl. Well, that said, I think Baltimore's figured it out, and they're like, look, let's sign this guy his rookie year to a 4-year contract. We're not paying him any more than we're paying any other position. And if he gets the crap beat out of him running this offense that's going to open things up more, so be it. And we'll just go to the next year and try to find somebody else. When everybody else isn't thinking like that, they're thinking, oh, my gosh, we've got to keep Tom Brady safe. There's no way we would ever do any kind of spread option with him. Not that he's athletically capable, but you could still do some things with him if you just pulled it on the zone read every once in a while and had him run and dive for 5 yards. Yeah. You can change it a little bit, but they're not going to, because those are the franchise guys. Yep. Now, I'm with you. I'm with them in some respects. If you've got one of those 7 to 9, I don't do it either, because they're capable of taking you some other way. If you've got Lamar Jackson, Tennessee showed us what happens, and God help me, my former boss, Warren Sharp, I'm going to say former, he asked me to write some columns for him last year in the analytics world. I did some quarterback stuff. He loves Lamar Jackson, and he's great for that system. But Tennessee, when Tennessee put them in the scenario last year, they got behind, and you've got to be a drop back quarterback like a Drew Brees, like a Tom Brady. He's incapable of doing it. They know that. So let's just run this offense. If he gets beat up, we're not paying him very much. We'll go find another guy just like him and plug in to our system and build it that way. So to answer your question the long way around, like I have, people aren't going to do that as long as they view the quarterback as the franchise savior. The problem is too many people view, in my opinion, the Sam Darnolds, the Jared Goffs as their quarterback of the future of the Super Bowl, when those guys in their career, Jared Goff got close because of absolutely awesome play calling and the best defensive player in the league. He got close, but those guys are never going to lead you to a Super Bowl, in my opinion. They're just not going to do it. I don't think Darnold's capable. I don't think Jared Goff's capable. So you might as well, since they've got some athleticism, run a little bit more of the Baltimore Raven type offense and put the defense in precarious situations that they're A, not used to covering, B, putting people in space to do, and C, making linebackers play the run and the pass, and they can't do both effectively, which is why play action is the number one type of play in the NFL to run.
Got you, Coach. I just want to get back to the analytics part of the game. Do you think the stats allow for a half commitment to your brand of football, or does there need to be a full-time commitment for the averages to work themselves out? For example, can I, as a coach, onside kick half of the time and expect your rate of recovery, or the more attempts, the better?
This is for all the coaches who like what you have to say, Coach, but maybe they're scared to embrace it full time.
Well, first of all, don't do it. Whatever you do not do my brand of football, because I have a tremendous advantage over you right now. So I don't want you closing that gap. If everybody plays the game the exact same way I'm playing it, my teams go 5-5 or 4-6, and we don't even make the playoffs. So I don't want them doing that. And you know, but there's a lot more, you know, there's some analytics to it, but there's a lot of teaching in those analytics as well. And what I mean by that is, you know, it'd be one thing to line up an onside kick, but it's morphed into where we really work hard on it. We want different onside kicks to up our percentage chances of getting them and that kind of stuff. To answer your question, some of it, if you embraced halfway, I think would benefit teams more, and they would be able to still benefit from just doing it part of the time. Some of them, I think it's a full-time thing. And, you know, probably the optimum level is somewhere in between me and halfway. And that would be doing it almost, and I say almost, as much as the numbers dictate you should do it. For instance, right now, there's somebody on every NFL staff that they don't listen to most of the time that tell you, you know, right now we should be going for this or kicking a field goal or punting, okay? The problem is they wait till fourth down and they tell them that, when if they had known on third, that tremendously helps their ability to make and convert fourth, or puts them in a shorter scenario because the play calling would have changed. All that said, the number is different than it really is because of what you mentioned a while ago, the psychological factor that factors in when you convert a fourth down on a play instead of playing normal football. Because I do know this, I've studied our numbers, and if you go back to when we played a similar type offense but we punted, and go to one where we use fourth downs now, we're going to convert more into touchdowns because we're using that extra down, sure. But what I found out is how much more dramatically that drive changes if we convert a fourth down. Psychologically, it puts us at a tremendous advantage over the defense at that moment. And we scored a much higher rate from the same spot on the field. We scored a much higher rate after we convert a fourth down. So say it's 4th and 5 on our own 45. And we make a first down and get to the 50. And say you kick off, we run it back to the 50, or you turn it over and we get it on the 50. We score touchdowns at a much higher rate from the 50 on a post fourth down conversion than we do the other two scenarios. And I think that people won't assign values to that because it's psychological and emotional. And I get it. You know, I've talked to some of those guys that run these numbers, and they say, if we can't assign a concrete value to it, if it's a variable, we can't factor it in. And I get it, but I'm just telling you, it's there. And so on my answer is, on some of those things, it would help if you onside kicked 4 times a game. If you could still get the kick at the rate you needed to percentage-wise to benefit your team, I think it's a tremendous benefit. We've learned to morph our whole game around the onside kick too, in that I had to get really good at offense because the field was going to be shorter for the defense. Well, when I realized we score at about a 70% rate of touchdowns and the average teams that scores at 33, lengthening the number of possessions helps me out tremendously. Because if let's say I score, let's make it real easy and say I score 50% and they score 30, which we score much more, 33. If there's a 9 possession game, if we shorten it up and everybody's running the ball and playing defense, and we score at 50%, that means we're going to score 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns. And they're going to score 3. So we're going to beat them by 1 or 2 touchdowns. If I score at 70, 75%, now give me a 9-possession games. We're going to score 6 or 7 touchdowns. They're going to score 3. We're going to beat them by 3 or 4. What that does is that allows you in a game to have a turnover, to have a couple of bad officiating calls, to not be as efficient on offense on a drive or two before you get things worked out, or a bad pass here or there, by simply lengthening the number of possessions. By being better at offense is one thing, but let's take that same scenario and go 9 possessions. I score 4 or 5, you score 3. Let's increase it to 18. I'm scoring 8 or 10, and you're scoring 6. I'm helping that gap where human error, turnover, officiating can still not lose the game for me. It might make it closer. So onside kicking has caused me to reevaluate the way, and that's where I got into a little bit more of the 20-yard plays and using 4th downs, because you need to score on a higher possession, a higher rate of possession than the other team, and that simply helps you win games at a higher level too, and allows more mistakes. So I morph it all into one thing, and the way we play defense and offense. But it would be hard to just pick and choose what you're going to do, in my opinion, except for certain things.
I think that's a great segue into my next question, Coach. So when we talk about stats, when it comes to your analytical approach, what are some stats that may be overrated that, traditional coaches or traditional sports pundits emphasize on? For example, like time of possession. Like how important is time of possession to your philosophical aspect when it comes to, your coaching style?
Well, I mean, time of possession is probably the worst one, because, it just doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter. I mean, in so many ways. Look, because let's say it only matters if you're the worst team. Now, if you're the worst team, having the ball out there and keeping them off the field can benefit you some. But in reality, people go, well, we got to have, it's time of possession because, our defense needs to rest or whatever. You don't need to. Well, think about it. If I go out there and run the plays, 3 straight plays with a 40-second clock, we can run off 2 minutes, and my defense still has to go out there after 3 plays. That's 3 clock minutes, but it's the same amount of time they're on the sideline. If I go out there and throw 3 straight incompletions or run off 15 seconds, my defense still rested the same amount of time on the sideline. So time of possession is one of the dumbest ones, and everybody kind of agrees on that one. I think some of the ones that are looked on are completion percentage in some respects. And because, if you go 20 for 25, but you average 5 air yards per attempt, you're probably not going to win a lot of games. If you go 15 out of 25 and average 10 yards per air attempt, per attempt, you're going to win a lot of games. So, there's a lot of them that don't factor in, that are traditional, yards per rush, that kind of stuff, total yards per game. In one sense, it's not, but it's more about yards per play. It's more about yards per pass attempt, those kinds of things. So everything is right on the line as far as being close to mattering, and like instead of yards per rush, you look at a running back and, guy averages 4.5 yards a carry. Well, that sounds great. Till you factor in, well, he had 3 80-yarders and he had 25 1-yarders. Well, the 3 80-yarders were great, but those 25 1-yarders probably caused him to have to punt 25 times. So then you start bringing in, stuff rate, average number of carries they have that are 0 or less, because those are drive killers too, and things like that. And then, success rate. How many of their yards on first or second down went halfway to the first down marker? Because if you've got 1st and 5, for instance, the other team jumped offside, and you have a 3-yard run, that 3-yard run is way more beneficial than a 1st and 10 3-yard run. So yards per rush, for example, is a really stupid one too, if you look at it that way.
All right, Coach, let's go to onside kicks. I want to really dive into this here, because I saw some videos, old videos of you where you're talking about having 12 different onside kick formations, and you really treat it like an offensive formation. That number might be different now, because I think that video is a few years old, but I just think the creativity, it's outstanding. You guys use copter kicks, the drop kick, onside kick. It kind of reminded me of listening to Bubba from Forrest Gump describe the different types of shrimp, man. You guys got all types of onside kicks here. But So I don't imagine any one coach in the nation has a deeper arsenal of onside kicks than you. So where do you find inspiration? Like, are you just digging in the rule books and go, because I saw one of them in particular, you can pick up for the drop kick onside kick, you pick the ball up off the tee, toss it back to the kicker, and he can legally just drop kick it from the spot there. Are you digging back to find obscure rules? Or I know you've talked to other coaches and stuff. Did you just pick it up from here and there in different pieces? Or like, I imagine people come to you to learn about onside kicks. Where do you go to figure out new weapons?
First, I'm going to walk and get water, so I hope I don't fade out on y'all because my voice is cracking a little bit. But on the onside kick world, first of all, you got to know the rules. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many officials don't know all the rules, especially when it comes to obscure things like drop kicks and stuff like that. So, when I first started coaching, it sounds stupid. I got the rule book out, read it backwards and forwards, and tried to learn as many rules. Well, then I started noticing the obscure rules and thinking, there's some advantages in here, and that you can take if you want to. And so what I did was I saw rules like that. And I go, well, is there an advantage to something because somebody's never seen it before? Well, I think the answer is a drop kick. Yes, because they've never seen it, but also yes, because if you want to change the direction of a kick and treat it like offense, like you mentioned that we were doing, if we line up 6 guys on one side and 4 guys on the other side of the kicker, sometimes they will unbalance their front line too. Well, if you wanted to change because they had overbalanced your 6-man side, you'd have to run your kicker all the way around the tee and they could adjust at the same time. But a drop kick, you could immediately turn before they could adjust and kick it to where they've got less numbers, where you've got the numbers game or a wider space in between guys. So to answer your question, it evolved in, can we find an advantage by either a kick that's legal or creating a kick that would do different things? So then we started determining, what makes it hard to get an onside kick. And for instance, I'll give you the same thing in the NFL that I grab about all the time. Finally, the last 3 weeks, you've seen some different things, but it's hop, big hop. The front line comes and blocks. And they let that guy stand back there and catch it easy. It drives me insane that we run billion-dollar corporations, i.e. these football teams, and that's your answer. And it's like a 4% get rate now because of the way they all kick it.
Right.
If we were making a decision that was 4% and you're the CEO of Google, you're fired, and but they're doing the same stuff. But so, you look at that and go, well, okay, the front line's coming. So I wanted to do something to attack that. Well, keep the ball on the ground where if the guy's looking at who he's trying to block instead of the ball, it's going to hit him and we've got a chance to get it.
Yeah.
Well, we did that and it was bouncing off of them. And so then we're like, what can we do to the ball that makes it harder to pick up if they do see it? Well, it's keep it on the ground some. And that's where we came up with the copter. So all we've done is try to figure out things that make it harder for the other team to recover, sometimes to the point of stupidity on my part, because the kick becomes too inconsistent and hard to kick. But usually now I've worked myself into figuring out either one, you've got a kicker that can kick 2 or 3 of the kicks really good. So go with those. Or 2, get 3 different people. In our last game, we had 3 different people onside kick Friday night. And we got each one of them, then we got one of their kicks. I think we kicked off like 9 times. So we got one. So we had 3 different guys kick off because for whatever reason, each person seems to naturally be able to do a different kick better than the other guy.
Well, we've seen where rule changes in the NFL, and you referenced it there too, where it's cut down. I think it went from 21% recovery rate to 6% a couple of years ago after the NFL changed the rules that there must be 5 guys on each side and they can't get a running head start. So when the Cowboys recovered a copter, it ended up being a copter onside kick against Atlanta. I hope you got a commission check for that, Coach. But
no, it's just the opposite. They started saying they came up. Somebody actually asked them. So I'm on SB Nation Radio.
Yeah.
Somebody actually asked them, "Oh, did y'all see Coach Kelley do it?" The story behind it is odd in my part because we went down and played Highland Park one year, and Jerry Jones' grandson was their quarterback. And he's a really good quarterback.
Stephen Jones, right?
Yeah. No, that's his son. I forgot the kid's name. Now he's at Arkansas.
Yeah.
As a quarterback.
Maybe Stephen Jr.
Maybe it might be Stephen Jr. Anyway, he's down there. We go down there and play him, and we kick the copter kick. Now, I'm not dumb enough to think that Jerry went and told his guys about the copter kick, but I will say he's seen it, And my videos are everywhere. I've showed NFL coaches, college coaches. For these guys to say they made it up, look, I don't need the credit, but I will say this: just don't lie. I just don't like the lying. There's no way in heck these guys made that up, and then they call it the watermelon. That's freaking stupid.
I saw your Twitter. I saw you called that out on Twitter. I was laughing at that. So that was pretty good. But
the only reason I didn't make a bigger deal was because they were like, "Oh, you've got to have credit for them doing it." You know, I don't know. I don't want the credit. I just don't want them saying they made that up when we made it up.
We've been doing that
I know
for years.
we made it up. Yeah, we've been doing it since 2006.
Right. Yeah. So would you embrace the onside kick strategy if the high schools took the NFL rule though? Where
it's not their all the rule change did was show people that they were being idiots on how they do it. Everybody's doing the same thing. Well, that's easy to prepare for. And the number went down a little bit is because they really, really changed the way they did it to even more bounce high over the front. I have no idea why. They thought having the ball up in the air longer, I think, would give their guys more time to get down there. Mm-hmm. But all it did was allow the other team to prepare more to block them and keep them from getting down there. So I think what it did was open up the chance for innovation to the NFL, but they didn't jump on it except for now in the last few weeks, and maybe even the Atlanta Falcons last year when they got those two in a game, 3, but there was a penalty on one of them. The innovation was there for them. Anytime something changes, you can look at it as, oh, crap, which they've done for the past 10 years. They've changed the kickoff rules 5 times in high school, and they call it the Kevin Kelley rules. And
hey, there's your credit. There's your credit right there.
Yeah, but they're trying to hurt me with the rules. That's not credit. Right. But what you can do is you can go, oh, wait, that hurt us. We're never doing that again. Or you can look for ways that the rules will be an advantage for you, which we've done here. In the NFL, when they changed that rule, to me, I thought this is the best thing that's happened to them because innovation, these coaches will start thinking, okay, how do we circumvent those rules and make them benefit us? Which they've done in every other aspect of every other NFL rule change that's ever occurred. You change the rules on blocking, people started passing the ball more because now this is not a hold. You know what I'm saying? If you're shooting your arms as a center and you're on a D tackle, that's not a hold. Used to, you had to block like this where you couldn't pass because you couldn't block long enough to pass.
Right.
And when they started protecting the receivers, now we can throw over the middle more. I mean, everything they've ever done rule change wise, the NFL's taken advantage of, except for this dumb rules on the kickoff, and they've all just thrown the towel in and said, well, you can't onside kick anymore, instead of being smart and finding out ways where you could make it benefit you. And the best way is the way the rules are now, everybody's telling the front line not to get the ball, which is why Atlanta didn't know. They've never been told get the ball. They've been told 2 things. 1, if it's going slow, get back. And 2, you're going to hit the other team coming down to get it. Now, what that does is when you kicked one at them on the ground, they're like, oh, do we get this? Do we not get this? That thing's spinning, So innovation would change that percentage if people would just do it. I could show them 5 kicks that would help them have a better chance to get the ball than what they're doing right now. And people go, well, you got NFL teams recover it, on the other side. Well, I've got NFL guys going to get the ball and kicking the ball. These kickers are magicians. Literally Friday night, I got my defensive nose guard kicking off. He works 5 minutes a week on it. Give me an NFL kicker that works an hour a day on this crap. We might get 90% of them before it's all over with.
I hate to even present this scenario to you, but do you think we'll see the onside kick? There's been talks of maybe even the onside kick being abolished at some point in favor of something like a 4th and 15 conversion play.
I don't think that'll be done. Obviously that's an opinion. I don't think it'll be done because it's such a big change in the game. Uh-huh. They talked about, they're worried about CTE and concussions. They changed the rules on kickoff. The big kickback was we don't want to fundamentally change the game. And the kickoff's been a part of the game since it was instituted. I don't think they're ever going to take that away where a team doesn't kick off. Now, I may be wrong. We live in a crazy society now where things I didn't think would hold value in the world would do now. So that could change. But I think just because the fundamental humongous change, I don't think that'll ever happen. If they do, advantage offenses,
Yeah.
Well, before I transition, Coach, with the next questions, Nick and myself here on American Football Stories is definitely going to give you credit for the copter kick. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about the onside kicks and the analytics approach. The new school. But what are your some favorite old school aspects about coaching football, and what style of football did you expect to coach when you decided to get into coaching?
I mean, I've got a minor in biology and I majored in accounting my first 2 years. I didn't expect to be in coaching at all. And then the more I had a friend that was going into coaching, then I had another one, and they seemed to be enjoying it better. Just the schooling aspect of it. So I got into it. I didn't really have any expectations other than I want to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can. The good news for me was I didn't know much football at all. I didn't play college football, and I just didn't know very much. So my mind was wide open, and I've always been a person to question things. And so I would always think, we would do things under my head coaches. And I'd be thinking, I just don't know why we're doing this. This doesn't make sense. And then it got to the point where I'm like, if I'm ever a head coach, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. And I'd write those things down. And then when I became a head coach, you really had to start thinking about all the things I'd ever thought were stupid and written down, and then combine that with the story I told you earlier of sitting there and going, wait a minute, how am I any better than the last guy who was here? And so I guess the thing that helped was I really didn't have a predetermined concept of how I was going to be as a head coach. And I think that's benefited me probably as much as anything, because I read an article the other day that said over 80% of the coaches they surveyed 1,000 people at this big coaches clinic. What would you say your main influence is on the style that you coach, even the drills that you do? And over 80% of them said either their college or high school coach. They did a lot of the same things they did. Well, I could say I'm 100% different than that, which might be a good thing, but they were brainwashed, so to speak, for lack of a better word, to do that. And so, and then you look up and everybody's still doing the same things that their guy was doing, that their guy was doing, that their guy was doing. And that's old school. I don't mind some of the old school stuff. I love the team concept. I love the camaraderie. I love the commit. I love that your guy beside you is counting on you. I love if you're a lineman, my guy's counting on me to protect them and sacrifice myself for him. I love all that old school stuff. I love the discipline factor of, we expect you to be on time. I think the world's losing some of that. I love the fact that, we expect selfless. There's some guys get to score the touchdowns and some guys don't. Some guys are the grunt guys. And that's the way it is at every job and society and that kind of stuff. So it teaches life lessons. I love that part of it. I just hate all the old school thinking that when I do something different than everybody else, everybody, gets pissed off or thinks I'm making a mockery of the game. I mean, and it's happened at every time. I had to sit whenever I'd go to coaches meetings at the end of the year, I'm sitting at a lunch table by myself because they're like, you're just making fun of the game by not punting. You're just making fun of the game by onside kicking. We started hooking lateral in a few years ago. And everybody doesn't like that either. Well, that's not the way football is really made to be played. I think football is made to be played any way the rules say it's made to be played.
Right.
Right. I just want to stick on the coaching aspect of things, Coach. So do you pull anything from other coaches, and do you have any favorite coaches out there that you like to kind of watch and see how they run their practices and kind of scheme up things?
Yeah, for sure. There's teams I like to watch, and I like to get some ideas from other coaches. Practice-wise, my way is not going to change much. I'm just a firm believer that you play the game 11 on 11. We as coaches have to be able to influence our people during the game, play by play if possible. So our practices are structured as such. I think what it does is makes us highly efficient in practice. Scheme-wise and X's and O's guys, I think the game will never stop being one that I learn from. And I think that's good that I know that. And I think there's always people to watch and do that. I love watching the Chiefs. I think Andy Reid's probably the best play caller in the NFL, play designer probably too. In college, you've got some great play designers. I think at Oklahoma, they do as good a job as anybody on play design and possibly even win play calling. I think the biggest thing that gives you a chance to win when you shouldn't is play design and play calling and when to call those plays. Most coaches call a play because their team's good at it, their quarterback's good at it, or they're trying to look for a matchup or get the ball in the hands of their best player. I try to call a play with the reason of what's the softest, weakest part of that defense and take what they give you in the holes in the defense. if design plays that are different and yards after catch analytically that are good. And I think that's the biggest thing that can close the deficit between a good team and a bad team.
Coach, I saw Coach Belichick sent you a congratulatory video after your 200th win. Have you spent any time with him, picking his brain at all?
You know, through networking and stuff, you get lucky. And I was doing a thing not for Notre Dame football, but Notre Dame has an analytics department, and I was doing a thing for them. I do a lot of corporate speaking now. People like coaches that are different. You know, who knew? Probably make more money doing that than I make actually coaching. But I've done a lot. So I'm going up there and I'm doing analytics speaking. It was the Monday night. It was a Monday night game or Sunday night game, where they were playing the Colts, and they were in town. And somebody knew somebody that knew me, that knew Belichick, and, you know, got word that, hey, he wouldn't mind you coming to the game. So he had somebody leave me tickets.
Oh, that's great.
And I go get the tickets. He invites me down after the game to go and meet him. So I take my son down there and we meet Coach, and we ended up talking for, you know, a couple of hours after the game. And, you know, guys are waiting on the bus, and he was super nice. He got Tom Brady off the bus to meet us, and Julian Edelman and these guys. And so we ended up meeting them and developing a little bit of a relationship. And he always goes, you know, and people always go, you know, if you ever want to come up and watch us, just let me know. Well, I mean, it's Bill Belichick, so I was terrified, you know, of really asking him that. But one day I just decided to ask him, you know, and so I sent him a message and asked him if we'd come up, and he's been really, really nice to my son and myself. And he picked my brain about a few things. And what I do is pick his brain and then just watch the way they conduct themselves. He's been super, super nice, and I would never betray what I've got to see, but about letting me in meetings and see things. And you know, I knew he was the best football coach on planet Earth that's ever happened, and he probably wouldn't like me saying that. But now that I've been there and seen it, if there was any doubt, there's zero doubt as to why the guy is the absolute best and wins no matter what's there, how it's going. You know, he had Tom Brady, and that's a good thing, and he was smart enough to morph his game plan around that. But you wouldn't know, you know, you take a guy like Wes Welker. Before Tom Brady, nobody knew who the guy was. After Tom Brady, nobody knew who the guy was. And it's the same for a lot of those guys. And they just take nobody players, and they use a lot of things to make them better. So he's a guy that, yeah, I've watched and learned, and not taking their exact things sometimes, but it spawned tremendous thought processes by myself and my other coaches to come up with ideas that we use down here. To slowly but surely, those things became staples in what we've done down here. And if you pick up, it's the old adage, if you pick up one thing from a lot of people, you picked up a lot of things. Well, I picked up a lot of things from him and a few things from other guys. And I don't think there's any doubt that's impacted not only coaching philosophy, but from the way you handle players at times to what you're doing on the field and in practice. There's a lot of things he does that I would never do, could never do, and other coaches can't facilitate. But it's taught me a lot. So yeah, that's been a tremendous relationship. And, you know, the thing nobody knows about the guy is he presents himself one way, but he's a normal guy like everybody else. He's a grinder, and he loves football, and he's driven. But outside that, you know, if you're in a car with the guy, he's a normal guy.
Yeah. Hey, Coach,
awesome.
we'll let you get running here. We really appreciate your time today. And, you know, good luck on track for your 9th straight title this year, state title this year. Best of luck. We really appreciate your time, though.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Great. Hey, tremendous questions. I've been on a lot of these things where I'm like, ooh, those were dumb questions. Y'all had some good questions. Sorry I went so long. Y'all didn't shut me up any, but I know you were thinking, shut him up.
No, we want you to talk. You're the guest. We want to give you the floor. I gotta say too, this is our first big interview that we're doing on this new podcast here, and we really appreciate. We're excited that it's with you. And hey, Coach, we'd love to hit you up again sometime.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I always enjoy talking football in the game. So thank you guys. Best of luck. And if you put it out where it's tweeted, tag me on there. I'll retweet it and maybe help you pick up a follower or two.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Coach.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Robert, what an interview, man. Coach Kelley definitely was super generous with his time. We were expecting to do about 30 minutes with him. Did about an hour there.
Yeah, heck of an interview, Nick. Once again, I know Coach Kelley wanted us to stop us, but once again, he's our first guest, so we wanted to give him the floor. We learned a lot, especially from the analytical side of things. And, we learned a lot about, Coach Kelley, the coach as well. So yep. I think it was a great interview, and I am definitely intrigued to have him back on, in the further episode.
Yeah, I thought he gave us a ton today, and we really appreciate him taking the time to join our podcast. And that's the type of stuff we want to give to our audience. We want to provide a podcast platform where we really dive into interesting aspects of the game and go a little deeper. So that really fits what we're trying to do, Rob. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Nick. It definitely fits in what we want to do. We just want to give our audience, a deep dive in the football game, just like you said. Of course, we do our breakdowns with the, scores and the pre-games and the gambling segment. But once again, we like to have guests on that's going to give us a deep dive into the aspects of football, not on the field and off the field as well. Yeah, exactly. All right, so if you got any final thoughts on this, or you're ready to read us out? Well, I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you so much to Coach Kelley. Thank you. It was a great interview. Very gracious with your time. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and with that being said, I'd just like to, thank the listeners for listening to American Football Stories. Once again, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Follow us on Twitter at AmericanFBStory and check out our website at AmericanFootballStories.com. Once again, my name is Robert Parker III, and my co-host is Nick Newsom. Thank you, and join into next week's episode.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we've found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot.
I'm very upset. We should have been in a ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
We just got to stop that little inside trap. The option didn't hurt us much. We played pretty hard. We just got to stop that inside thing. Offensively, we kind of sputtered around, got the ball in the end zone. Defensively, we got to get out off the field on that 2-minute drive.
Injuries to your offensive line. What do you do in the second half?
Oh, we're just going to play. We just got to keep playing.
Thank you, Coach.
He has a magnificent personality, I'll tell you.
We receive a lot of mail during the course of the season, and a lot of it's good mail, a lot of it's bad. And I would say that most of it is good, though, isn't it, Bill? Yeah, I think so. I'd say 95 to 98% of the mail we get is always good. But the one question that keeps coming up where Woody Hayes' name is involved, they say you're a man of no mercy. And yet, frankly, I don't care much what they think.